Okay, so we've now looked at a number of data sets, and I've used phrases like, highly correlated, kind of correlated, loosely correlated. If and when you take later stat classes, you will see measures for this, but I don't want to get at those measures right now. A lot of times what I've noticed when I teach those later stat classes, students tend to get lost in the numbers and lose the art of the correlation. So I want to just talk briefly in this one slide. This is going to be a really short video, just one slide, about positive correlations and negative correlations, and also lack of correlations, but also what makes it a low positive correlation or a high positive correlation. Now, if you look for low versus high, you look and it's easy because low is more spread out than high. But what does more spread out mean? If all you have is this in front of you, then how do you know it's low? That is indeed the art of data mining and correlation identification, and also why the same answer, an answer given by three different people might be three different correct answers. So when you put them side by side, a low positive correlation is clearly less well correlated than a high one. And even that is less well correlated than a perfect positive correlation. But if you've ever seen The Fugitive, you'll know that a perfect positive correlation is why Harrison Ford was running away from the one-armed man. So I don't want to talk too much about perfect correlations because generally speaking, they don't exist in the real world. When correlations are perfect, something's usually up. Okay, negative correlations kind of operate the exact same way. You can have low negatively correlated things, kind of loosely grouped, but still falling left to right. You can have high negatively correlated things, so they're falling left to right, more tightly grouped, or perfect negatively correlated, which again, these I feel silly even putting these up here because generally speaking, you're not going to see perfect correlations like this unless you select your data extraordinarily carefully, and usually that means you're suffering from what's called selection bias, which we'll talk about later in the course. Very often, and you'll see this maybe in the optional homework you do later, there's often no correlation between your independent and dependent variables, and that's what data mining sometimes is all about. Taking a look at a different variable here and a different variable here and just keep changing it until you see a correlation begin to show up. And honestly, that is exactly why correlations can be infuriating, but also kind of fun because they force you to kind of think outside the box a little bit. And like I said before, sometimes it's more of an art form than a science or a math. Okay, in the last series of little videos here, we're going to take a look at some other verbal and also not as obvious correlations that exist, just again to get you the feel for this idea of data mining.